Describe a famous athlete you know. With regards to my favorite athlete, well, there are too many to mention. If I have to narrow it down to one, there is a particular athlete who I strongly admire, and that is Yao Ming. He is well known in our country for being competitive in his field. He is a famous basketball athlete. His achievements have made our country very proud. Obviously, our country is not the best in this field, but he conquered the world with his great talent. However, I heard that it took him a lot of sweat and tears to get to the top of his game. The thing is, his moves inside the court are so flexible, and because of this, he catches every single player off guard. It is incredible to believe that he entered the lineup of the NBA as a rookie. Not all basketball players can reach that level. Actually, very few do. He is indeed one of the best athletes in China. He is my inspiration in pursuing my dreams, and when he is making the headlines, I feel very proud and inspired. Without a doubt, one of the major reasons I admire him is that he made a success in a sport that Chinese people do not often become household names. I think that his striking story of persistence is a lesson for every fan. I would do absolutely anything to meet him. As a matter of fact, he has won numerous MVP trophies and medals. That is very impressive and mind-blowing, isn't it? At a very young age, he has already achieved so much. I suppose he is the kind of person who is willing to sacrifice everything in order to achieve their goals. That's the main reason why I have such a high regard for him. Describe a famous athlete you know. The person I would like to talk about is Kobe Bryant. Speaking about this topic makes me remember his great moves and incredible dunks. He is, I believe, the most famous American basketball player in my country. That's why, when the Olympics was held in my country, everyone shouted his name when the American team entered the court. I am a basketball fanatic, and I have grown up following his moves, his dunks, and even his shoes. I have a collection of his red and purple jerseys, with both his numbers 8 and 24. I also broke down in tears when he told the world that he was retiring. I started watching and playing the sport because of him, and I wondered what would happen when he retired. Just last month, I, along with millions of his fans, watched his jersey retirement. And I admired him even more for his passion for the sport that he had played for 2 decades. I almost burst into tears again when he made a moving speech at half-time because he mentioned that he wouldn't have been successful if not for the fans who were there to watch his rise to fame. I felt like he was talking to me. It may sound so melodramatic, but that was how I felt. He has been retired for around 2 years now, but his jerseys still sell like hotcakes. This clearly demonstrates that he is a very famous player who is admired not only for his skills, but also for his dedication to the game.
Well, I'm going to talk about Michael Phelps, who is an American athlete. He was an extremely talented swimmer. I say was because he retired a couple years ago in 2016. In his swimming career, he achieved so much, making him one of the greatest athletes of all time. I know Michael Phelps mainly because I love swimming. I really enjoy watching swimming competitions because I find them extremely fascinating and exhilarating. I remember in 2004, when I was watching the Athens Olympic Games, I saw one guy who won 6 gold medals and 2 bronze medals. It really shocked me. I found it unbelievable. I was dumbfounded to know that one single person could win that many medals. So I decided to look more into him. I tried to discover more about Michael Phelps, and that's how I know him. In terms of what he has achieved, well, he has broken so many world records. I think he's the holder of the most world records probably in swimming history. Another thing is that over the years he has won so many medals. Like I said before, in Athens he won 8 medals, and in Beijing he won 8 gold medals. I don't remember how many gold medals he won in London and Rio, but anyway, he just has so many, to his name. So I think Michael Phelps is extremely famous. I believe this is self-explanatory, right? He is the greatest swimmer of all time. Another reason why he is well known is that he is very hardworking and extremely persistent. So that makes him a very good role model to everybody. Basically, he sets a good example to everybody who wants to achieve their dreams.
Well, today I'm going to talk about Michael Phelps, who is an American athlete, and he was the most talented swimmer at all time, as he was because he retired in a couple years ago in 2016, and he has achieved so much, making him was the greatest swimmer. I know Michael Phelps because I love swimming and I often watch swimming competition because I found it really fascinating and exhilarating. So I remember in 2004, when I watched the Asian swimming competition, I found one guy who achieved 6 gold medal and 2 bronze medal, and it was unbelievable, and I was dumbfounded to know that one single person who can achieve so much. So at that time, I decided to look more into him. I decided to discover more about Michael Phelps. So that's how I know him. In terms of all he has achieved, well, he has broken so many world records. I think holder of the he was the holder of the most world records probably in swimming history, and he has achieved a lot. Like I just said, he won 8 medals in Athens, and in Beijing he won 8 gold medals. But I don't know how many medals he won in Rio and London. But he achieved a lot to his name. So he is extremely famous. I think is self-explanatory because he is always the best swimmer at all time. But another reason I think he's famous mainly because he's very hardworking and extremely persistent. As basically he sets a good example to everyone who want to achieve their dreams.
I'm going to talk about Liu Xiang, who is a famous and talented athlete in track and field in China. He's at his 30s now and married with another athlete and has a lovely daughter. Retiring from national team 2015, Liu Xiang then became a coach. The first time I knew him, it was on 2008 when China was the host of Olympic Games. It was China's first time to be a holder, so every Chinese was proud of it, and it seems to be a national event to everyone. When so even though I didn't interested in sports games, but I still paid close attention to the process of Olympic Games. So when Liu Xiang announced to quit the list from 110-meter hurdles, it was really a big surprise to Chinese people. Um, but actually, Liu Xiang was a very talented athlete in 110 meters hurdles field. In 2004, he was the champion of this game by 12.91 seconds. And 2 years later, Liu Xiang broke the world record, which lasted for 13 years by 12.88 seconds in this game. He is just proud of China at that time. So why Liu Xiang is so famous is that I think he gained a lot of reputation and criticized in his athlete career. So that is why he is so famous.
So I'd like to talk about David Beckham, who left a mark in the history of soccer, even though he's now sadly retired. Well, technically, he's now a fashion icon. I'm hardly a groupie for football, but I'm not gonna lie, I got to know him because his looks. I ran across an interview of his after he won the league title. I was deeply attracted to his appearance and his British accent, so I did some extensive research about him. Turns out he's known for his range of passing, crossing ability, and bench free kicks as a right winger. In other words, he's a pretty good player as well. So I was pretty shocked. In an era when not anyone can get famous for being cute or articulate or having reliable Wi-Fi and access to a high-definition camera, Beckham is like a legitimate and unquestionable superstar on a global level. He is successful and he is a good father and a good husband. So I guess that is part of his charm.
Well, now I would like to talk about a famous athlete whose name is Guo Jingjing. Once she was a famous athlete in diving in China. But a few years ago, she quitted her career. Mm, mm, career. She was well known as her excellent performance in Olympic Games. As far as I remember, the first time I knew her that I was watching the Olympic Games. Most of Chinese people call her the Queen of Diving because she had been a champion for many times in the previous Olympic Games, which made her a leading figure in the field of diving in China. Moreover, she had broken many world records and surpassed herself again and again. When talking about the reasons why she is so famous in China, personally, I think that many people admire her is because of her shocking courage and never giving up on sportsmanship instead of her remarkable achievements. That's all.
Okay, today's video is on the part 2 topic of a famous athlete that you know of. Let's have a listen to the first sample.
Describe a famous athlete you know. With regards to my favorite athlete, well, there are too many to mention.
This is not a bad way to start your part 2 turn. Using this phrase with regard to, and then you mention the topic. And then notice here he starts very broadly, very generally. There are too many to mention. But the next phrase, this if I have to narrow it down, well, you do have to narrow it down. I don't know. The first sentence is very good. The second sentence is maybe not as good because you don't really have a choice. I don't know why there's an if here. Instead of saying, let's listen to the second sentence.
If I have to narrow it down to one, there is a particular athlete who I strongly admire, and that is Yao Ming.
Okay, so instead of saying if, why not say since I have, or but since I have to narrow it down to one, there's a particular athlete, blah, 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 blah. Let's just leave out the if and replace the if with since. Now, some good here. Look at this, narrow it down. So now we're getting more specific. In the beginning, he said there are so many, very general, and specifically the one he wants to talk about is Yao Ming. And here we have this adverb describing the verb, strongly admire. That's pretty good. And we have this relative clause here, who I strongly admire. So good language, good grammar.
Who I strongly admire, and that is Yao Ming. He is well known in our country for being competitive in his field. He is a famous basketball athlete.
Okay, field is great. If you're going to talk about sport, field is definitely a word that you should know. I don't know if I would call those people basketball athletes, though. I mean, usually we call them basketball players.
His achievements have made our country very proud. Obviously, our country is not the best in this field, but he conquered the world with his great talent.
All right, let's look at the mix of tenses here. Present tense. No, wait a second. Let's go back even more. Okay, so his achievements have made our country proud. Present perfect tense, because maybe he's going to have more achievements. Present tense to describe a fact, our country is not the best in the world. And past tense, he conquered the world. Past tense, well, because this action is finished. So a great deal of tenses there used very accurately. And look at this adjective to describe the noun talent, great talent.
Talent. However, I heard that it took him a lot of sweat and tears to get to the top of his game.
Now, I often talk about idiomatic language. This is idiomatic language. Sweat and tears. Sweat and tears means hard work. But we use sweat and tears as an idiomatic phrase. And look at this, top of his game. So if you are the best in your field, you are at the top of your game. This is idiomatic language. Idiomatic language is not, what do people often say? Don't judge a book by its cover. That is an idiom. The examiners don't expect you to use idioms in the test, but they do want to hear some idiomatic language like this.
The thing is, his moves inside the court are so flexible, and because of this, he catches every single player off guard.
Okay, so court, the place where basketball is played. So this person definitely has the vocabulary to talk about basketball. And look at this here, to catch somebody off guard. If you do something and the other person didn't expect that, you catch them off guard. This is another example of idiomatic language.
It is incredible to believe that he entered the lineup of the NBA as a rookie.
Okay, some more vocabulary directly related to sport and maybe basketball specifically. Lineup, rookie. I guess not basketball specifically. This could be used for pretty much any sport, these two.
Not all basketball players can reach that level. Actually, very few do. He is indeed one of the best athletes in China. He is my inspiration in pursuing my dreams, and when he is making the headlines, I feel very proud and inspired.
Okay, so a lot of talk about inspiration. Here we have inspiration. Here we have the adjective inspired. I guess you can use inspiration a lot when you talk about sport, right?
I feel very proud and inspired. Without a doubt, one of the major reasons I admire him.
Now, why on earth is there a period there? Okay, I just got rid of the period. Okay, one of the major reasons, unfortunately we don't have the cue, so I don't know exactly what cue this person is addressing here. What happened now? One of the major reasons he made a success in the sports. Okay, let's have a listen to this.
Without a doubt, one of the major reasons I admire him is that he made a success in a sport that Chinese people do not often become household names.
The household name is a good phrase. If most people know who you are a household name. It's a name that people use in their household. But I just feel there's a word missing here. He made a success in a sport that Chinese people do not often become household names in. Because people become household names in a particular sport. There's just a word missing from this here, but it's not a big deal.
I think that his striking story of persistence is a lesson for every fan.
Okay, striking, used to describe story. This guy is using a lot of adjectives. And here, persistence. Well, if you're going to talk about a success story in sport, the people who become successful are usually the people who are persistent, who show persistence. This is a useful word when you're going to talk about sport.
I would do absolutely anything to meet him. As a matter of fact, he has won numerous MVP trophies and medals. That is very impressive and mind-blowing, isn't it?
I kind of feel like let's change this into two separate sentences. Okay, let's just go back to what he said before here. I don't quite understand how this is linked. Okay, so I would do absolutely anything to meet him. I understand that. He has won numerous MVP trophies. I understand that. But I don't understand that as a matter of fact, because as a matter of fact means that this idea and this idea is linked. I cannot see the connection between the two. Is this like a result? So because he's won numerous MVP trophies, I would do absolutely anything to meet him? Maybe, but then this clause should be because or since, not as a matter of fact. As a matter of fact is used to add more information, but this information that is being added is there's no connection with this here. And another thing, don't ask the examiners questions in part 2 because they can't answer the questions. That's very impressive and mind-blowing, isn't it? These are great adjectives, but let's leave out the tag question. Actually, why is there no comma there? There we go. Don't ask the examiner's question. It's in part 2. They can't respond.
He has already achieved so much.
Okay, wait a second here. At a very young age, he has already achieved so much. Well, I don't know how old he is, but I can't imagine that he's very young. I'm a little bit confused about that.
Already achieved so much. I suppose he is the kind of person who is willing to sacrifice everything in order to achieve their goals. That's the main reason why I have such a high regard for him.
Okay, and if you're going to talk about an athlete you admire, I guess this is a pretty good phrase to use here at the end. I have such high regard for him. Another way you could put this is I put him or I have him in such high regard. Alright, there's the first sample. Some really good language there. Let's move on to the second one.
Describe a famous athlete you know. The person I would like to talk about is Kobe Bryant. Speaking about this topic makes me remember his great moves and incredible dunks. He is, I believe, the most famous American basketball player in my country. That's why when the Olympics was held in my country, everyone shouted his name when the American team entered the court.
Okay, so again we see the word court. Just one thing here, something I do like is here where he used the passive. He said when the Olympics was held. It's a good idea, but Olympics is plural, so it's got to be when the Olympics were held. Olympics were. The idea of using the passive is good, it just doesn't quite successfully pull it off.
I am a basketball fanatic, and I have grown up following his moves, his dunks, and even his shoes.
Okay, these three ideas of the moves, meaning the moves that he makes during the game, his dunks and his shoes, he's going to develop these later on, so we're going to see him referring back to these.
I have a collection of his red and purple jerseys, with both his numbers 8 and 24. I also broke down in tears.
Now, I talked before about idiomatic language. Here is another example of that. I broke down in tears. So when you cry over something, you break down in tears. This breakdown here, this is the idiomatic part.
Down in tears when he told the world that he was retiring. I started watching and playing the sport because of him, and I wondered what would happen when he retired. Just last month, I, along with millions of his fans, watched his jersey retirement.
Jersey retirement. I don't know much about basketball. I don't know if this is a thing. But look at this. He uses specific points in time, just last month. That makes it easy for the listener to follow what he's saying, right? So we know it happened pretty recently. Although I don't know how long ago this was.
Jersey retirement. And I admired him even more for his passion for the sport that he had played for 2 decades.
Now, here, this person uses the past perfect tense correctly. The sport he had played for 2 decades. Because we're talking about the 20 years before his retirement. Both these things are in the past. The retirement is in the past, and the 2 decades are also in the past. So that's why for the 2 decades we use the past perfect to show this happened earlier. So really good, accurate use of different tenses.
Almost burst into tears again when he made a moving speech at half-time.
Okay, so earlier he said, where is it now? Broke down in tears, and here it is burst into tears. Okay, so this guy does a lot of crying, but, well, he uses idiomatic language to describe all the crying.
Tears again when he made a moving speech at half-time.
Half-time, this again is a word specific to sport. That little break they take in the middle, that's half-time.
Because he mentioned that he wouldn't have been successful if not for the fans who were there to watch his rise to fame.
Okay, again, more idiomatic language. Rise to fame. Very good. And if we look at the grammar here, he mentioned that he wouldn't have been successful if not. This wouldn't, if not, shows that he's describing a situation that is unreal because he was really successful. Good use of the if clause here.
Talking to me. It may sound so melodramatic, but that was how I felt.
Okay, melodramatic, also a good word to use.
He has been retired for around 2 years now.
Here the present perfect tense because he retired in the past and he's still retired.
But his jerseys still sell like hotcakes. This clearly...
Now, hang on a second here. Oh, jerseys. Here, this is an actual idiom, to sell like hotcakes. They're very popular. Such good vocabulary here.
Cakes. This clearly demonstrates that he is a very famous player who is admired not only for his skills, but also for his dedication.
I didn't really talk much about this guy's pronunciation. He's reading, but I mean, he's putting some effort in here. Look at this here. Who has admired? That can't be right. What?
Clearly demonstrates that he is a very famous player who is admired not only for...
Who has admired? What?
Famous player who is admired not...
I didn't even pick this up. Yeah, this is a mistake. Who was? But why does the was sound like has?
Famous player who is admired not...
Nah, this should be was, because admired is an adjective, so we need a be verb. Who was admired? Anyway, I wanted to talk about his pronunciation, because look at skills. You notice when he says skills, his voice rises.
Is admired not only for his skills...
And the reason why it rises is because there's more coming.
But also for his dedication to the game.
And then on game, you can hear his voice falls. I don't know. After listening to that, you might think, whoa, I'll never be able to do a part 2 turn like this. To get a good score, you don't have to talk like this guy. Well, he wasn't talking at all. He was reading a prepared speech, I can say. I mean, this is really good. To get a good score, you don't have to talk as well as this guy did. But there is a lot of vocabulary in here related to sport that you will hopefully find useful. Let's move on to sample 3.
Well, I'm going to talk about Michael Phelps, who is an American athlete. He was an extreme...
This clause here, who is an American athlete, you've got to use those relative clauses.
talented swimmer. I say was because he retired a couple years ago in 2016. In his swimming career, he achieved so much, making him one of the greatest athletes of all time.
Yeah, this present participle making, this is something you can really use in your task 1 writing also. So if there are 2 things that happen to the same person or to the same subject, we can use this ing. So he achieved so much and he also became one of the greatest athletes of all time. That's why we can use this making.
Greatest athletes of all time. I know Michael Phelps mainly because I love swimming. I
just want to say something. If we go back to, I didn't mention this before, but maybe I should mention it now. Describe a famous athlete you know. Actually, it should be describe a famous athlete you know of. If you say, where is it now? I know Michael Phelps. Does he mean you know him personally? What this should actually be is I know of Michael Phelps, or I know about Michael Phelps because blah 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 blah. If you say you know someone, it kind of sounds like you know them personally, which is probably not what you mean.
Greatest athletes of all time. I know Michael Phelps mainly because I love swimming. I really enjoy watching swimming competitions because I find them extremely fascinating and exhilarating.
Okay, so let's look here. We've got the adverb really, we have the adverb extremely, we have the adjectives fascinating and exhilarating. A lot of descriptive language. Remember, in part 2 you have to describe, and this guy is definitely describing here.
I remember in 2004 when I was watching the Athens Olympic Games.
And here he's using the past continuous tense because these two things happen at the same time. Oh, I don't need to go into the grammar so much. But my point is, he's using the past perfect tense correctly, the was and the ing, and here he goes back to the past tense. That's something that a lot of people get wrong in part 2 when they talk about things that happened in the past, like 2004, but they use the present tense.
I saw one guy who won 6 gold medals and 2 bronze medals.
Okay, and he knows how to talk about the medals, the gold, the bronze, apparently no silver, but okay.
It really shocked me. I mean, I found it unbelievable. I was dumbfounded to know that.
Okay, so here he kind of says 3 things that are very similar in meaning. I was shocked, I found it unbelievable, I was dumbfounded. Very similar in meaning.
A single person can win that many medals. So I decided to look more into him. I tried to discover more about Michael Phelps.
Let's get back to this phrasal verb here. Look into. If you look into something or someone, you try to find out more about it or about them. That's a good phrase to use in speaking.
And that's how I know him.
And that's how I know of him.
In terms of what he has achieved.
Now, I mentioned in other videos, I think, how in part 2, in your introduction, you shouldn't use in terms of this topic, I would like to talk about blah, 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 blah. That's not the right way to introduce a part 2 topic. But here, this person uses in terms of correctly, because he's describing Michael Phelps in terms of what he achieved. This is the criteria by which he's judging him, or not judging him, describing him. He's not talking about his personal life, he's talking about his achievements in the sport. So in terms of his achievements, and then he's going to say, well, he describes that. He describes that aspect of his life. This is the right way to use in terms of. Don't use this in the part 2 introduction.
He has broken so many world records.
Notice the stress on so. He has broken so many world records.
I think he's the holder of the most world records.
And we saw the stress on most there also. Notice here how he uses holder. Because if you break the record, well, first of all, you break the record. After you break the record, you hold the record until someone else comes along and breaks your record. And you are the holder of the record.
World records probably in swimming history.
And notice this rising intonation here. Probably it shows that he's not sure. He's making a guess.
Another thing is that over the years he has won so many medals. Like I said before, in Athens he won 8 medals, and in Beijing he won 8 gold medals. I don't remember how many gold medals he won in London and Rio, but anyway, he just has so many, to his name.
Okay, and this preposition here too, he has so many records to his name. I think it's easy to understand, but maybe it's just difficult to remember that you have to use the preposition to for the sentence.
So I think Michael Phelps is extremely famous. I believe this is self-explanatory, right?
I don't really understand the sentence. So I think Michael Phelps is extremely famous, right? I believe this is self-explanatory, right? Yeah, we all know that. So I'm not even sure why he's saying this. It's a good phrase to use, self-explanatory, but if it's so self-explanatory, why is it necessary to say it?
The greatest swimmer of all time. Another reason why he is well known is that he is very hardworking, and extremely persistent.
I think before we saw the noun form, before the other person talked about persistence, and here we see the adjective persistent.
So that makes him a very good role model to everybody.
Yeah, if you're going to talk about athletes, yeah, why not use the word role model? And also this phrase, to set an example to other people. These are definitely two phrases you can use when talking about athletes, right? And how people look up to them.
Basically, he sets a good example to everybody who wants to achieve their dreams.
Alright, let's move on to sample 4, which is a copy of what we just heard. Just not as good as the one we just heard.
Well, today I'm going to talk about Michael Phelps, who is an American athlete, and he was the most talented swimmer at all time, as he was, because he would.
Okay, so you might notice this woman speaks quite fast. She corrects herself quite a bit. He was the most talented swimmer, and then at all time as it was. Not sure what this means. Now, okay, usually I say if you mispronounce English names, it's not a big deal. But what she said here was, I'm going to talk about Michael Phelps, not Phelps, she said Phelps, who's an American athlete. Now, in the examiner's mind, if you say Michael Phelps, maybe they're not going to connect who you're talking about because you got the name wrong. So then you should, if you're not sure how to pronounce the name, please help the examiner realize who it is you're talking about. Who was an American swimmer. Maybe he substitutes swimmer for athlete. Because if you say athlete and you say Michael Phelps, maybe they don't know who you're talking about. Be clearer in your description of who you're talking about if you're not exactly sure how to say the name.
A talented swimmer at all time, as he was, because he retired a couple years ago.
There's no in here, so he retired a couple of years ago. A couple of years ago.
In 2016, and he has achieved so much, making him was the.
Okay, now making him. I think I talked about making before. How if two things happen to the same person, you can use that, but there's no be verb here. So making him the greatest swimmer.
Greatest swimmer. I know Michael Phelps because I love swimming.
Okay, same thing. I know of Michael Phelps.
I often watch swimming competition because
competitions.
I found it really.
Okay, because I find, this is present tense. I love swimming. I find, but here she's talking about competitions, so this should be them. I often watch swimming competitions because I find them really.
And because I found it really fascinating and exhilarating.
Okay, this word is not exhilarating, it's exhilarating. Exhilarating.
So I remember in 2004, when I watched the Athens swimming competition, I found one guy.
She's not as precise as the other guy was. It's not the Athens swimming competition, it's the Athens Olympics.
Who achieved 6 gold medals.
Okay, you don't achieve 6 gold medals, you win 6 gold medals. This is not the right verb. Win. And it's medals because there are 6 of them.
2 bronze medals and
medals.
it was unbelievable, and I was dumbfounded to know that once.
You can't say I was dumbfounded to know. I was dumbfounded to find out or to learn, but not to know. Dumbfounded and know don't go together.
A person who can achieve so much.
Okay, and it's the grammar here also. So I was dumbfounded to learn that a single person could achieve so much. Here, we don't need the who. I was dumbfounded to know that a single person could achieve so much. Because here, we already have that, so we don't need the who here.
So at that time, I decided to look more into him. I decided to discover more about Michael Phelps. So
Again, it's Phelps. I decided to discover. Okay, that's okay, I guess.
That's how I know him. In terms of all he has achieved, well, he has broken so many world records. I think he was the holder of the most world records probably in swimming history, and he has a
If I were her, I would move the probably. He was probably the holder. But not a big deal.
swimming history, and he has achieved a lot. Like I just said, he won 8 medals in Athens, and in Beijing he won 8 gold medals. But I don't know how many medals he won in Rio and London. But
Okay, so her speech is a lot more kind of like jerky than the other person. She's a lot less fluent, even though she's basically saying the same thing.
he achieved a lot to his name. So
You can't achieve a lot to your name. No, you can achieve a lot. This to his name, this part doesn't belong here.
he is extremely famous. I think is self-explanatory.
And this is not... So you can say the fact that he is extremely famous is self-explanatory, because you can explain facts. So not he. The fact that he is extremely famous is self-explanatory.
Because he is always the best swimmer at all time.
I don't even know what this means. He is always the best swimmer at all time. What? 100 years from now, he is going to be the best swimmer? I don't understand that.
But another reason I think he's famous mainly because
And I don't understand why she says but here. And because she's just adding more reasons. Why have the but? That's used for contrast. There's no contrast here.
famous mainly because
I think this word is mainly, but the way she said it, it sounds like many.
is very hardworking and extremely persistent. As basically he sets a good example.
I think this should be and, but it comes out as basically.
He sets a good example to everyone who wants to achieve their dreams.
Anyone who wants. Okay, so she has some problems with subject and verb agreements. Everyone who wants. Okay, let's move on to sample 5.
I'm going to talk about Liu Xiang, who is a famous and talented athlete in track and field in China.
Whoa, it kind of sounds like she says China here. But anyway, track and field, yeah. So it's a good phrase to use when you're going to talk about sport. I don't remember exactly what this person did. She never... Oh, is it hurdles? Okay, hurdles. He ran hurdles. Okay. There we go.
He's at his 30s now and
Okay, he's in his 30s now. He's in his 30s now.
marries with
And married to. Married to. He's in his 30s now and married to...
another athlete and has a lovely daughter. Retiring from national team.
The national team. Whenever you see the word national, usually it's going to be preceded by the word the. The national whatever. The national anthem, the national stadium, the national whatever you want to say.
2015, Liu Xiang then became a coach. The first time I knew him is
No. The first time I learned about him, the first time I found out about him, not the first time I knew him. She has this tendency to add the syllable to the end of words, first instead of first. Oh, and it's in 2008. In, not on.
was on 2008 when China was the host of Olympic Games.
For the Olympic Games, we do have to say the Olympic Games. The Olympic Games.
No, it was China's first time to be a holder, so
I'm guessing she wanted to say host. But but it came out as holder. If the Olympic Games is held in your city, then, well, you are the host, not the holder. Holder is like for records, like we saw before, but the city is the host.
Every Chinese was proud of it.
I don't know why there's an before an adjective. Proud of it. Okay, I guess the it is them holding, not holding, the it is them hosting the Olympics, I suppose.
Of it. And it seems to be a national event to everyone.
But now she switches to the present tense, even though she's talking about something that happened in 2008. This is what I mean. Often when people do part 2, they revert to the present tense even when they're talking about things that happened 12 years ago.
A national event to everyone. So even though I didn't interested in
Adjective, so this is wasn't. I wasn't interested.
sports games,
We just say sports. There's no games. So even though I wasn't interested in sports, but now here we have even though, and then here we have but. Choose one. Even though and but do not go together.
interested in sports games, but I still paid close attention to
Okay, the close attention is a good phrase to use. Well, actually, pay close attention is a good phrase to use, but there's no article. Attention is not a countable noun. So I still paid close attention to
the process of Olympic Games.
Well, the Olympic Games is not a process, it's an event. So I still paid close attention to the Olympic Games. I'm not sure why she wants to say process of. I mean, just leave it out.
Of Olympic Games. So when Liu Xiang announced to quit the list from 110 meters hurdles, it was really a big surprise to Chinese people.
This I don't understand. When Liu Xiang announced to quit the lead, I mean, the words are not wrong, but I don't know what it means. How do you announce to quit the lead? I don't get it. I don't know what she was trying to say here.
Announced to quit the list from 110 meters hurdles. It was
Okay, but she knows that the sport that he took part in was the hurdles. That's good.
really a big surprise to Chinese people. But actually, Liu Xiang was a very talented athlete in 110 meters hurdles field.
Okay, just one thing. If you're going to talk about events in track and field, we have to add the. So Liu Xiang was a very talented athlete in the 110 meter hurdles. There's no S here. 110 meter hurdles. We don't need the field.
There's hurdles field. In 2004, he was the champion of this game.
Hurdles is not a game though. It's just a sport. So in 2004, he was the champion in this sport or in this event, but not game.
By 12.91 seconds.
I'm a little bit confused now because if you use by, that shows by how much he was better than the number 2. But I don't think that's what she means here. She doesn't mean he was faster than the number 2 by 12 point whatever seconds. I think what she means is in 2002 he set the record at 12.19 seconds. The verb is not, well, it's not a be verb. He set the record at 12.19 seconds.
By 12.91.
And after point, we can't say 19. After point, we have to read the digits individually. So 0.191. You can't say 0.191.
Seconds. And 2 years later, Liu Xiang broke the a world record which lasted for 13 years.
Okay, here I'm a little bit confused. He broke the world record. Oh, by the way,
Lasted for 13 years by
I missed it now. Let's listen to that again.
a world record.
Record. It's not record, it's record. The world record. So just be careful with the pronunciation of this. But that's not what I wanted to say. What I wanted to say is I'm a little bit confused about this lasted. The verb for records is stood. So Liu Xiang broke the world record, which had stood for 13 years. Stood. Records stand until they are broken.
Which lasted for 13 years
Which had stood for 13 years.
by 12.88 seconds.
Okay, again, it's 12.88 seconds. And it's not by. Same mistake. He set. Okay, so here it's not broke. Maybe he broke the previous record by, I don't know, 0.1 seconds or 0.2 seconds. But set. So this is his time. He ran it in 12.88 seconds. So he set the new record.
8 seconds in this game.
Again, it's not a game, it's an event.
He is just proud of China at that time.
He's just proud of China. I don't think he was proud of China. I think China was proud of him. Now, what you could say is he was the pride of China. You can change this into a noun. You can say he was the pride of China.
At that time.
But also this has to be past tense. He was, not he is. He was the pride of China.
So why Liu Xiang is so famous is that I think he gained a lot of reputation and
Why don't we say he gained a great reputation, not a lot of reputation. Each person can only have one reputation. It's just like personality, I suppose. You can't have more than one personality, usually. So he gained a great reputation.
criticized in his athlete career.
This I'm confused about, because she's talking about positive things, but then here she uses the word criticize. I don't understand why.
So that is why he is so famous.
Okay, here's sample 6.
So I'd like to talk about David Beckham, who left
Beckham.
mark in the history of soccer.
This is a good idea to talk about leaving a mark. Again, idiomatic language. But the verb isn't right. It's not have, it's has. Who has left a mark in the history of soccer. The language is good, but the grammar is faulty.
Even though he's now sadly retired. Well, technically he's now a fashion icon. I'm hardly a groupie for football.
Groupie. Just be careful how you use the word groupie. And also, why don't we say football groupie? It's not groupie for something. It's noun and then groupie. Just be careful how you use this word.
But I'm not gonna lie, I got to know him because his looks. I
got to know him because of his looks. See, now, I don't think you got to know him, because if you get to know someone, well, it means you know them personally. I don't think she ever met David Beckham. So I learned about him, or I became interested in him because of his looks. But I don't think she got to know him.
across an interview of his after he won the league.
Ran across. You can only run across people. You can't run across an interview. I came across an interview. If you find something accidentally, you come across it.
His after he won the league title. I was deeply attracted to his appearance and
I do like her pronunciation though, especially here where she said league title. The way the league and the title kind of flowed into each other. Let's listen to that again.
his after he won the league title.
Title.
I was deeply attracted to his appearance and his
I was deeply attracted. Okay.
British accent, so I did some extensive research about him.
It's research, actually. That's not research. Research. Yeah, no, never mind. No, I take that back. That's okay.
Extensive research about him. Turns out he's
More idiomatic language. Turns out. So in the end, I found out he's known for blah, 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 blah. Turns out. Good language. And here she uses some specific words related to soccer, passing, crossing.
known for his range of passing, crossing ability, and bench free kicks as a right.
Now, surely this should be...
Known for his range of passing, crossing ability, and bench free kicks as a right wing.
Now, I'm pretty sure she wanted to say kicks, but it came out sounding like kicks. Kicks and right winger. Good vocabulary.
In other words, he's a pretty good player as well.
But now she said he's retired, but here she's using the present tense. So he was a pretty good player.
So I was pretty shocked. In an era when anyone can get famous for being cute or articulate or having reliable Wi-Fi and access to a high-definition camera.
Okay, she's trying to paint a picture here of people who are famous online now, but I don't quite get her point. I don't know who is she comparing David Beckham to. And also, this word is not exit, it's access. Access.
To a high
And I missed it again.
Wi-Fi and access to a
It's not exit, it's access.
high-definition camera. Beckham is like a legitimate and unquestionable superstar.
I guess he's still a superstar, so here I guess the present tense is okay. But look at this, legitimate and unquestionable. Good vocabulary. I wouldn't use unquestionable. Legitimate and superstar, these two words do go very well together. Legitimate, superstar.
Global level.
Look at this here, global level, more good vocabulary.
He is successful and he is a good father and a good husband.
Now, she introduces a lot of topics here. She's saying he's successful. Well, actually, she's not introducing anything. This is towards the end. This is a very short response. But if you're going to say that he's a good father and a good husband, well, develop the ideas. I notice now it's right at the end. Right at the end, she talks about how he's a good father and a good husband. But you didn't mention any of these things in your talk.
So that is part of his charm.
Yeah, I guess in speaking, it's not as bad as in writing if you introduce new things towards the end. But still, it's going to affect your score for coherence. Let's move on to sample 7.
Well, now I would like to talk about a famous athlete whose name is Guo Jingjing. Once she was a famous...
Whoa, notice here there's no pause here. She started a new sentence with no pause. You do need to chunk your ideas. You do need to pause between ideas.
athlete in diving in China.
Okay, so once she was a famous Chinese diver. Not athlete in diving in China. Once she was a famous Chinese diver.
But a few years ago, she quitted her career.
Okay, you'll notice here this woman also speaks quite slowly. It's going to affect your score for fluency. The past tense for quit is not quitted, it's just quit.
Korea?
I guess she's talking to somebody in the room, maybe her friend. Here, career came out as Korea, but it's career.
She was well known at...
Okay, this adjective is well known, not well known. At least here she's using the past tense.
She was well known as her excellent performance in Olympic Games.
Okay. The word is actually Olympic, but like I said before, if you mispronounce English names, I don't think that's the worst. But it is the Olympic Games. And she cannot be a performers. It's just performer. So she was an excellent performer in the Olympic Games.
Olympic Games. As far as I remember, the first time I knew her that.
It's not the first time I knew her. It's the first time I found out about her, or the first time I saw her. And there's no that. The first time I saw her, I was watching the Olympic Games.
I was watching the Olympic Games. Most of Chinese people call her the Queen of Diving.
Okay, I'm a little bit confused now. Here she switched to the present tense, but she was talking about the Olympic Games. I don't know when this was, but this is in the past. Why do we have the present tense here? And it's not most of Chinese people. It's most Chinese people. There's no of. You're talking about the whole group of people in China. So there's no of.
Call her the Queen of Diving because she had been a champion for many times in the previous Olympic Games.
Okay, now I'm a little bit confused. I don't know why this is the past perfect tense. She'd been the champion for many times. In the previous. So why is it not what? Okay, I don't know which Olympic Games this is. I guess this is a different Olympic Games from this one. I don't know. I'm confused about the sequence of events. I don't know if this came before this. I don't know why this is perfect tense. But okay. Anyway, this word is champion. And this word is previous. So she had been the champion many times. There's no for. She'd been the champion many times in the previous Olympic Games. But how many times can you be the champion in the Olympic Games? Don't you just win only once? I'm not sure.
He had been a champion for many times in the previous Olympic Games, which made her a leading figure in the field of diving in China.
Okay, this I'm confused about. More or which, I don't know what that is. I don't know what a living in figure is. The field of diving, I can understand that. So she's some kind of figure in the field of diving in China. Not exactly sure what kind of figure.
Moreover, she had broken many world.
You can hear her friend laughing at her there. Again, I don't know why this is the perfect. Why not just say she broke many records? Well, she broke many world records. I don't know why we have the past perfect tense here. And this word is world, and this word again is records. Broken world records.
And surpassed herself again and again.
Surpass yourself. I'm not sure that you can. I'm not sure that you can surpass yourself. You can outdo yourself. She outdid herself again and again. That's okay. You can surpass other people, or you can surpass certain achievements. You can surpass your earlier achievements, but you cannot surpass yourself.
When talking about the reasons why she is so famous in China, personally.
When talking about, well, no one is talking about this. So why do you say when talking about the reasons? No one was talking about the reasons. This is not the right way to introduce a point. Why don't you say when it comes to the reasons, blah, 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 blah.
Again. When talking about the reasons why she is so famous in China, personally, I think that many people admire her is because
There's a B verb here. I'm not sure why. Because I think many people admire her because there's no is. A lot of people admire her because
her is because of her shocking courage and
this word is courage, not courage. Courage. Shocking and courage, these don't really go together. Maybe remarkable courage, because of her remarkable courage. She doesn't explain why this woman was so courageous, but okay. But shocking is not the right adjective.
King courage and never giving up on sportsmanship.
It's not sportsmanship, it's sportsmanship. Never giving up on sportsmanship. Sportsmanship is a great word to use. I'm not exactly sure what never giving up on sportsmanship is. Maybe people admired her because of her sportsmanship. Let's leave out the giving up. This is not clear at all.
Instead of her remarkable achievements. That's all.
Okay, so people admired her because of her courage, because of her sportsmanship, but not because of her achievements. Confusing. I don't know why we have this instead of here. It's very hard to follow. This response, maybe the weakest of the whole bunch, is not very coherent. It's difficult to understand what this person is trying to say. A lot of self-correction, slow speech, and also a lot of mispronunciations.